بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Today, inshallah, we're starting with al-Am wal-Khas, which is the first, or arguably the second, Usul heavy topic within al-Waraqat. So, al-Am wal-Khas, general and specific. These are terms that are going to be used throughout fiqh. These are from the most important terms that any faqih or usuli has to know. And of course, al-Waraqat being a summarized text will not give you all the nuance to it, but it will it'll get you started for later on. We said in the first class that al-Am wal-Khas are often confused by students with mutlaq and muqayyad. And it's not because they sound the same, they don't sound the same. It is because the ideas are quite similar. Al-Am wal-Khas, general and specific, and al-mutlaq wal-muqayyad, which is restrained and unrestrained. The one who knows the difference between these two from the first, lesson, he has that means he's on the right path to understanding usul al-fiqh at an advanced level. So what is al-am wal-khas? If you guys remember, we're still under the divisions of language. So the first division of language was haqiqa and majaz, literal and figurative. Next was al-amr wal-nahi, commands and prohibitions. So general and specific is still a division of speech. So a sentence, a phrase that could be said. This phrase could be classified as general or it could be classified as specific. So the actual words fall under one of these two. And so naturally, a hadith or a verse of the Quran, when it is described as general, we are describing the language in that verse or hadith. We're saying هذه الآية عامة. This verse is general. This means that the wording of this verse is general. Now, exactly what this means, we're going to get into it in a bit. But just to clarify that this is still a division of language. Now, وأما العام فهو ما عم شيئين فصاعدا. So, something that is general, a piece of language, a component of language that is general, is something that addresses or is an attribute of at least two things. So two things or more. So something that describes one component. If I have a verse that's talking about one person or talking about one car, so it doesn't have to be a person, it could be an object, or one day, 1 month. This is not called general. This is specific. General has to be at least two things. Now, generally speaking, general components of language, whether they're verse or hadith, they generally refer to all things that they describe. So, if we have a verse that says, "Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu," O you who believe, by default, we say that this is talking about all people who believe. Or if we have a hadith talking about uh, some a specific thing being haram, let's say um, such as khamr, for example. Khamr or alcoholic drinks generally refers to all types of khamr by default. Now, a general sentence can later on be specified. And it can be specified by many different things. It can be specified by another verse, another hadith, it can be specified by reason, many things. But this is not the default. So why is he defining general as something that describes at least two things? Because even though by default it could refer to many things, If later on specified, it still needs to refer to at least two things. So if we have a verse that says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, if we are to argue that there is a mukhassas, a, a piece of evidence that specializes or specifies the ruling here, if it specializes it, it means that some people are going to be removed. It's no longer general. It's referring to a more specific within the general. If we do this, it has to still refer to at least two people or two things. So, al-am, it's something that generalizes two things or more. So at least two things. And he gives some examples from the Arabic language. He says, عَمَمْتُ زَيْدًا وَعَمْرًا. So I don't know why it says Umar, it's Amr, the other name. So I included Zayd and Umar. This is a general because it refers to at least two people. Or وَعَمَمْتُ جَمِيعَ النَّاسِ بِالْعَطَاءِ. I included all people. جَمِيعَ النَّاسِ, all people. Now, how do we know when something is general or not? There are four different ways, four different attributes in a sentence that are evidence of something being general. And he lists them right here. وألفاظه. So this addition is not very good in this sentence. I'm going to read from my text and not from the PDF, but you can focus on the English. وألفاظه. So the wordings of al-am are four. Now these four can be later on subcategorized, but these four are the main categories of words that are evidence that something is general. The first one, النوع الأول, الاسم المعرف بالألف واللام. So a name that is a noun that is made known through an alif and a lam. Now, if you know Arabic, you know what an alif and a lam is. If we have a person, a man, he's walking in the street, we can refer to him as rajul, man. However, if we add an alif and a lam and we say ar-rajul, it means the man. So now this person is made known. We call it mu'arraf, to be made known. Now this is the first way we know that something is general. How do we do this? I'm going to read from the examples of Imam al-Khattab in his commentary. So he says in the verse, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. So al-insan, insan is people. Al-insan is an alif and a lam, to be made known. What this does is, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one second. Sorry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by al-asr, by time, that humankind is in decline except for the people who believe, and the rest of the surah is known. But the point is that this ruling, that people are in decline, how do we know it refers to all people? How do we know it's a am, it's a lafz am, it's a pronunciation or a component of language that is general? Because of the alif and the lam. Al-insan means the people. So he's referring to all of the people. Now, again, we can say that exceptions can be made from this, but by default, this leads us to say that this is a general verse. Al-insan, all people. Now, for those of you who don't know Arabic, not every alif and lam at the beginning of a word is al-ta'rif. It's not all for making something known. There are other types of alif and lam, such as lam al-ahd. So if you're still learning Arabic, don't look at any alif and lam and say that this is a general um, a general alif and lam. Rather, if you know Arabic, you know that it is the alif and the lam of ta'rif. So not just any alif and lam. والنوع الثاني. So the second type, second component in language that leads us to know that this is a um, general لفظ, a general word. الاسم الجمع المعرف باللام. So again, it's a word that is known by the lam. However, now we are talking about al-ism al-jam', plural nouns. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah At-Tawbah, قاتلوا المشركين, fight the polytheists. What does this mean? It refers to, so alif and lam refers to polytheists. It's not just now the polytheists of Mecca or the polytheists of Ta'if. It refers to all polytheists. As we said, a general can be specified. Does this mean that if I find a polytheist in Alaska that I have to fight him? No. So there are, again, with the different rulings and the different madhahib, there are adawat takhsis. There are things that specify which polytheists we're talking about. And generally they say that they are the polytheists within Arabia. So from the north to the south, all of Arabia, no longer just the Meccans, but all of the Arabs who are not Muslims. قاتلوا المشركين, fight the polytheists. So this is an example. First of all, it's an example of the second method of general language, which is the alif and lam that are attached to a plural noun. So al-mushrikeen, mushrikeen, it's called jama'. It's a plural noun, whereas the singular is mushrik. So this is first of all an example of the second way of knowing it's general, and it's also another example of a general that can be specified. So it's a general. If we look at the language on its own, and we take away all context regarding Islamic rulings and history, then what is understood that it refers to any polytheist anywhere in the world at any time in any context, right? This is absolute general language. However, it's عام مخصص. So it's a general that has been specified and specified to a specific group of polytheists, which are again the ones in Arabia. والنوع الثالث. Okay, I'm just trying to follow along in this version because it is اسم الجمع المعرف بالألف واللام. And the third one, والنوع الثالث الأسماء المبهمة كمن في من يعقل. We have in Arabic something called ism mubham, a noun or a name that has been hidden, or mubham, it's been made unclear. So I'm trying to find so he's defining it as undefined nouns. I'm going to define a little more clear. When we say, so the example he says, كمن في من يعقل. So when we refer to people, he says here, في من يعقل, the people who are, who have knowledge. This is a fancy way to say humans, basically. If we say, من أتى إلى مكة, من is a اسم مبهم. من أتى إلى مكة, he who has come to Mecca. This is an unclear noun. It's a noun that has been hidden. Who came to Mecca? We don't know. So من أتى إلى مكة فعليه كذا, for example. If we say whoever has come to Mecca, he needs to do wudu. I'm not saying this is a ruling, just give an example in the language. This is a general evidence. It refers to whoever has come from Mecca, meaning any human who has come to Mecca needs to do wudu. من أتى إلى مكة. So he says, ka, So for an example of a ism mubham, it's men. Men refers to what? People who are, things who are knowledgeable. وَمَا فِيمَا لَا يَعْقِلُ. So what about the things who are not knowledgeable? Animals, uh, or objects such as a couch or a table. These, we say, لا يعقل. They don't have knowledge. So he refers to them here as animate beings and inanimate beings. This is close enough. We don't say men, we say ma. It's the exact same function as men, but it refers to things that do not think. So I say that for example, ما وجدناه فلنأكله. Well, that's not an excellent sentence, but we say, whatever we have found, let's eat it. ما أكلناه. So it refers to anything and everything that has been found. Or ما وجدتموه فخذوه. Whatever you find, take it with you. This is another form of ism mubham, an undefined noun or unclear noun. And this is evidence that everything that falls under this should be taken. If I say ما وجدتموه, whatever you find, this is a lafz am. It means that the ruling I'm about to place, it falls under everything that has been described. So whatever has been found means everything that has been found, unless there is another piece of evidence that specifies this. So I say ما وجدتموه فخذوه إلا الكبير منه. If I say whatever you have found, then take it with you, except for what is too big to take. This is a specifier. It specializes the meaning, and now it no longer refers to everything that is found. It refers to only the things that are not too big. وَأَيْنَ فِي الْمَكَانِ. Another form of ism mubham, undefined noun, is ayn. Ayna, it refers to places. So Imam al-Khattab says, أَيْنَ تَجْلِسْ أَجْلِسْ. Wherever you sit, I sit. This means that any place you sit, if you sit in the couch, I have to sit on the couch. If you sit at the table, I will sit at the table. So it's a general, it's a lafz am. It's a general meaning, and it refers to every example that falls under it linguistically. وَمَتَى فِي الزَّمَانِ. Mata is also a ism mubham. It refers to places. متى تقوم متى تقوم أقوم. So whenever you get up, I will get up. Exact same thing as the previous example of whenever you sit, I will sit, but now it's whenever you get up, I will get up. وما في الاستفهام. So ma, we refer to ma the first time, which is referring to inanimate beings. If I say ما وجدتموه, anything that you find, take it with you. There is a second form of ma, which is ma for istifham. So for interrogatives, consequences, and other things. Whoever has studied English at an advanced level might know exactly what this means, but I'm going to give an example for those who don't. We say ما عندك. Imam al-Khattab says ما عندك. It's a question. It means, what do you have? ما عندك. What is in your possession? This is a question, and the answer should be general, because the ma is a general word. So the answer should be inclusive of everything that you have. If I say ma, what do you have? You should tell me everything that you have, unless there is a mukhassas, unless there is a piece of evidence that specializes what I'm asking. So if context specializes that I'm asking you for what type of phone do you have? For example, you tell me, I think iPhones are the best. And then I respond, which one do you have? ما عندك, like, what do you have? This context specializes what the question is asking, and so the answer in return would be specialized and it would be referring to only which phone do you have. So it wouldn't refer to all possessions that you have. وفي الجزاء. So we're still going off of ma. And I wish the translator had made bullet points so it would be easier to follow along in English. So jaza in this context refers to reward. So consequence kind of has a connotation of something being negative, but it doesn't have to be could be a reward, it could be a consequence. It's something that happens as uh, something that follows from an action. So he says ما تفعل تجزي به أو تجزى به. We say that whatever you do, you will be rewarded for it. This could refer to good things or bad things. So this refers to, by default, everything that is done. If you do a good thing, you will be rewarded for it. If you do a bad thing, you will be rewarded for it. Um, if you do something that is even better, you will be rewarded even more. This ma here refers to anything under this category. So ما تفعل تجزى به. Whatever you do, you will have a consequence of it, whether it's good or bad. This is another form of ma. وغيره. So he doesn't list all of the forms of ma. Rather, at the end, he says وغيره and other things. And the reason for this is that ma has many other uses and meanings in the Arabic language. And I remember him being or listening a little more, but my memory could be from a commentary other than this one. So we'll stop with these examples for now, and we'll just use the examples listed by uh, Imam al-Juwayni himself. ولا في النكرات. So the last form of ism mubham he uses. Sorry. This is no longer in al-asma al-mubhama, and this is now the fourth form of general language. So the first one we had was الاسم الواحد المعرف بالألف واللام. So a singular noun with an alif and lam, and then a plural noun with alif and lam, and then we had al-asma al-mubhama, which were unclear nouns or undefined nouns up to here, and then the last one is wala fi nakirat, and no for indefinite nouns. So nakira, at the very beginning we defined what an ism mu'arraf is. We said that a rajul can become ar-rajul. A man can become the man. So it's mu'arraf. It's knowledge is given to which man is being spoken of. This is called ma'rifa in Arabic. It's knowledge. Something that is described with ma'rifa becomes ism mu'arraf. The opposite is a ism nakira. Nakira is a noun that is not known. It is not known which noun it is. So if we have a nakira, an undefined noun, and we have no in the same sentence. For example, if we say لا رجل في الدار, as Imam al-Khattab says in his example, لا رجل في الدار, there is no man in the house. We have no, and we have it combined with رجل. Because rajul is a general word, it can refer to any rajul. We don't know which rajul, we don't know which man he's speaking of. Because it can refer to any man, if we negate this indefinite noun, this undefined noun, then by definition we have negated anything that could possibly be a man. So if we say Zayd is not in the house, Zayd is one instance of a man. So let's say a man is a genus uh, of human beings, and there are millions of examples of a man. If we say Zayd is not in the house, then we've said that one instance of man is not in the house. If we say Zayd and Omar are not in the house, then we've removed two instances. However, if we say that no man is in the house, then we've negated any instance of man being in the house. And that's why when you combine no, la, with a nakira, an indefinite noun, then it's a general evidence because you've added a ruling to the entire genus. Why does this not happen for the opposite? We say رأيت رجلا رأيت رجلا في الشارع, the first example we gave. If I say I saw a man, we haven't defined which man this is. Correct. But because we haven't defined which man this is, it could be any man. I could have seen Zayd on the street, but Omar and Ahmed and Abdullah were in the house. So this ruling doesn't refer to all men, rather it refers to one man. So when we have a nakira, an indefinite noun, an undefined noun, if it's positive, if we're affirming something, we're affirming that we saw a man, then it is not general. However, if we're negating a general, if we're negating an undefined word such as man, then it becomes general. Then it has to refer to all men, whereas the opposite is not true. والعموم من صفات النطق ولا يجوز دعوى العموم في غيره من الفعل وما يجري مجراه. So generality, I said in the beginning of the lesson, we're still talking about divisions of speech, and general and specific refers to types of language. And so Imam al-Juwayni here is reaffirming this idea. العموم من صفات النطق. It's a characteristic of speech. So you can't claim an action is general. ولا يجوز دعوى العموم في غيره. So if a verb or something else cannot be defined as general. If the Prophet ﷺ says to do a specific thing, and this hadith, the language is general, then the language is general. However, if the Prophet ﷺ does a thing, he does something, like an action, and for example, he's been seen praying, you cannot say that his action is general. Rather, actions are regarded as specific, and we're going to get into a little more detail with this. Actually, no, we do have time to talk about this now, but it'll be the last thing we discuss for today. So, if we see the Prophet ﷺ praying Dhuhr and praying Asr, and he does Jama', he combines the prayers. If we see him doing this when he's traveling, he hasn't said anything. Obviously, there are hadiths, but in this specific instance, let's assume nothing has been said. If we see him do this, is this evidence that you can combine prayers whenever? It's not. Because an action, by necessity, any action, it has to happen in a specific time and place. And so actions cannot be described as general. Now he can do an action and then speak about it later on and say that you can do this whenever. Right? Only then the evidence for its generality is no longer the action, it is the hadith that accompanied the action. So for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli." He said, "Pray as you have seen me pray." Why did he say this? Because now this is a general command. It refers to all prayers. If he didn't say this, it could be said that, okay, the Prophet ﷺ prayed in this specific way, but this could be specific to him, and we can pray however we want, right? If he stands up and does four rak'ahs and he prays, for example, in the Dhuhr prayer, he prays silently, but he doesn't say, pray as you have seen me prayed. The other people, if they haven't received a verbal command, they're not going to know that this action or the description of this action is obligatory for them, right? They could say that, okay, the Prophet ﷺ was praying silent, but we don't have to. Or the Prophet ﷺ prayed 4 rak'ahs, but we don't have to. This is specific for him, or it was specific for his time, and now we can pray more. No, because he gave verbal commands to pray in a specific way, that's why praying in a specific way is obligatory. And that's why we have obligatory actions in the prayer, and that they're not just all recommended actions or sunnah. So any action, he says here, من الفعل وغير وما يجري مجراه. So it's not just verbs. There are things like verbs. I'm not sure what to describe them with in English. But the point is anything that is not speech. So verbs, actions are not speech. There are other examples of things which are not speech, but they don't matter. The point is not to list them all. The point is to know that generality and something being general is a description of a spoken word or sentence. So, al-umum min sifat al-nutq. It's a characteristic of speech and only speech. It is not permissible to claim general application in actions which are not so, meaning which are not speech. And that is the end of the section of general. We have 3 minutes, which is very convenient because next time we'll start with al-khas, specific, which is, as you should know by now, the opposite of al-am. طيب. If anyone has last minute question, either to type or to speak up. Now will be the time. No questions, Ustaz. Okay. I'll see you all next week, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم.